It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Andy, Rene, Lori, and Alex, they're all in studio. And it's time to talk about those new face masks you can wear that don't break Face ID, the iPhone SE2, and why you should never call it the SE2, and what's going on with all the ads on iOS 13. It's all coming up next on MacBreak Weekly. MacBreak Weekly comes to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. Securing every access point in your company doesn't have to be a challenge. LastPass unifies access and authentication to make securing your employees simple and secure. Check out lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is MacBreak Weekly, episode 701, recorded Tuesday, February 18th, 2020, inside the Convolution kernel. This episode of MacBreak Weekly is brought to you by Health IQ. Health IQ uses science and data to secure lower life insurance rates for healthy people like you. To see if you qualify, go to healthiq.com/MacBreak and take the Health IQ quiz. It could help you save 41% on your life insurance premiums compared to other providers. It's time for MacBreak Weekly. Snap those fingers. The show where we talk about the latest news from Apple. Rene Ritchie is here from Montreal, host of Vector at imore.com/Vector. Hello, Rene.
Hi, Leo. It's great to be here again.
Good to see you, as always.
So absolutely.
To Rene's left, Mr. Andrew Anatko of the Boston Public Radio Anatkos. Good to see you.
Only one so far, but we're working to bring other people from the old country.
What was it?
I'm one of those anchor babies.
They're breeding like tribbles.
On Beacon Hill, there was a saying about the Boston families. I'll look it up.
Oh yes, land of the cod, where the Cabots, where you go, speak only the Cabots, and the Cabots speak only to God.
Only to God. That's exactly it. You knew it. He is from the Boston. Anatkos of Boston. Alex Lindsay is here of 090
Hello.
Media. Now, I say 090, but it's 090.
It's 090, but we say 090.
Yeah.
It's easier to say.
John gets mad at me because, I do phone numbers like, 0209, and he says there's no O in the numeric system. He gets mad at me.
Does he know about Klondike, Leo? Klondike 5.
Yeah. What was the song, Jenny? What's Jenny's number?
8675309.
09. And that's Lori Gill, who knows that song, probably sings it with Sickburn, her punk band. She's managing editor at iMore. Hello, Lori.
Hi, how's it going?
Gone all pink today on the
all
hair.
Pink. Can I just say how great all of us look today?
We all look beautiful.
We all look great today.
You look marvelous. Nobody here is wearing a face mask. That's because we're all in our own spaces.
Although maybe we need a little face mask, like a rest mask.
Oh,
like after this is over.
QUE kind of a mask. That kind of mask.
Seaweed with charcoal.
There you go. These are face masks that make you look like yourself.
It also fools face detection, Leo. Like if you're out there committing acts of freedom.
Now, can I get my own face on the face mask, or does it have to be some other person's face?
But then they'll face ID you, Leo. That's the whole point of this, is not to look like you.
Oh. Who makes these? I want them.
Right now, they're just being made kind of as an art project.
Oh. But I could make it probably, right?
Yeah. Resting risk face. That's enormous.
Resting risk face. So face masks, of course, and that's nothing to joke about. Wow, that's amazing. Look at that. Look at that.
Scary.
It is a little weird. N95 respiratory masks that work. Oh, that's why you'd want it, so you can unlock your iPhone. Work with your face recognition.
I don't think that would work.
Yeah, it shouldn't work.
If it does,
better not work.
Now I really want to find out.
Not with your iPhone or Pixel, but probably with the other ones.
Let's order some. Carson, get some made up.
I've already put myself on their mailing list to notify me of their launch.
You can't with an N95 mask. The beard is a problem.
Look, this guy's got a beard.
And a bow tie.
Okay. He's got a thin beard.
He needs one with a bow tie.
Bow tie mask. The reason we're talking masks, of course, is because we're laughing. We're whistling past the graveyard as coronavirus slowly whittles away at the Earth's population. No, it's not that bad yet, but it is whittling away at Apple's revenue. They put out a adjusted guidance saying we might gonna fall short.
No new guidance.
No new.
Yeah.
They're just not going to make the numbers. They're not saying what they're going to make. And the changes are so rapid. Like they thought it was leveling off, and then it started accelerating because they were adjusting how they were defining what was coronavirus. And we've talked about before how there's no idea what's happening there. There's just not enough tests, not enough people being sent home. It's not a complete mystery, but it's a large form mystery.
Some of that, you think, is some of that China's the government's unwillingness to be too forthcoming about what's really going on,
and inability at this point too. But the bigger thing for Apple is that they already said that this was going to impact them. They just had no idea how much, and now they're saying that it's going to have a far bigger, longer term impact. And Apple got out ahead of this. Like they stated their earnings late, and now they're not late, but close to when this happened. Like they said at the end of January, this happened beginning of February. By this happened, I mean the explosion of more information about it. And there's going to be my guess is there's going to be company after company coming out after Apple with very similar sort of warnings.
Yeah, well, Volkswagen just said their plants in China are slowed down.
Yeah, Airbus is having trouble. There's 150 million workers are being restricted from just being able to go back to work, and the only factories that are really in full operation are, of course, the ones that are making medical supplies and dust masks,
including Foxconn, which switched from iPhone manufacturer to mask manufacturer in at least one of its plants. Yeah. Apple said we don't make anything in Wuhan, the epicenter of the crisis, but and Mark Gurman in his Bloomberg story said it looks like they're still going to announce the new $400 iPhone in March as planned, but you have to think that that's going to be the phone most impacted by production slowdowns.
Well, I know that I finally got one of the new phones, and getting a 256 was almost impossible. I don't know if it's connected, but they were like, oh, we can't, like Verizon couldn't get it. Yeah. Like they were like, we don't have any of those.
Gurman also says the iPad Pro will be released in March.
Well, there's two problems. One is manufacturing enough to meet supply, and the other is people in China can't go out and buy them. I mean, those stores were closed, and they're just now starting up, so they're being impacted both at the factory to be able to create supply and in their second or third biggest market, depending on any given quarter, in people actually not being able to go out and buy them. So it's a double sort of whammy for their numbers.
Yeah. Gurman says they're still they have produced enough SE2s. Will it be called the SE2, you think, Rene?
No, I don't know what it will be called, but I don't think they'll use. Yeah.
It's the successor to the very successful SE, a $400 iPhone.
No, it's not.
It's not.
It's not the same size. Come on.
Okay, it's not close.
It's an
A13. It's the size of what is it? The size of an iPhone 8.
It's the successor to the 8.
Yeah.
Everybody out there that's listening that is a fan of the iPhone SE, you know where I'm coming from. Whatever they're putting out, it is not an iPhone SE2. It's not even close.
The SE was on the iPhone 5 platform, right? You like that size?
Yep.
Yes.
That's great.
Yes. I'm a huge fan of the 4-inch phone. I love it. And this phone will not look like that. So it's the iPhone 8 successor. It's more like that one.
Would you consider ordering the Samsung Z Flip?
Oh, man, yes. I want that phone so bad.
It matches your hair. I think that
I know.
I have
Take
ordered
Daniels.
it.
He can't be trusted with it. He keeps dropping it in front of Leo.
Yes, I know.
I was so bummed because Daniel Rubino on TWiT had one. I said, how'd you get one? You must have contacts. He said, no, I just went to Best Buy and they had. And then I went to Best Buy. I thought, well, that's what I did. I ordered at 9:08 Pacific time, 8 minutes after the sales supposedly started, and they were already sold out. I went to our local Best Buy. I said, yeah, we had two.
Rubino lives a charmed life.
Yeah. Rubino loves his.
Yeah. I think I'm willing to let them sort out the issues for a couple of years.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
any sensible person. But I don't think anybody who loves this iPhone 5 size phone was sensible. So
nope. It's all about the way it looks. Absolutely, yeah.
Are you using an iPhone SE right now?
I used the iPhone SE until the iPhone 10 came out, and that ended up being sort of my compromise. I didn't love it. It's still too big. That size is still too big for me.
It's a lot smaller though than the current crop.
But it fits. It's more narrow, so that feels better in my hand. But yeah, like if there was if a new SE came out, actually I've had this discussion. the size that I have grown comfortable with, and I have the 11 Pro now. I'm so used to that size of a display that I'm not sure I could actually go back to the 4-inch size.
The 12 Pro is going to be smaller.
The 12 Pro is going to be smaller than the 11 Pro. It's going to be
smaller than the 11 Pro, yeah. So you'll get a little bit of
that'll be something. Yeah, that'll be something.
Would Apple ever make a folding phone? We talked about this last week.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, they prototyped it. They still don't think it. They've been prototyping it for 10 years. They just don't think it's they think it's like a kindergarten going on to first grade level technology in terms of like when they sell a phone, they want you to be able to use that phone for 3 to 5 years, be able to hand it down to other people, and they just don't think that the durability aspect of it is there yet. And I think we're seeing that play out in the market. It's great if like you have the money and you want to get one and it's super fun, and I love them too, but I would not tell like anyone in my family who plans on holding on to it for 3 to 5 years to get one.
Yeah, it's the perfect thing for Samsung to make, given that they make like 20 different phones. This can be just one of them. When Apple decides to endorse a design by saying we're introducing 3 new phones this year. One of them is going to be this folding technology that is still largely unprecedented, and the bugs are still being worked out. That's really not what Apple does. But as soon as the technology is absolutely there, and more importantly, there are numbers indicating that there is a really big demand for it, and Apple consumers want them. Oh, absolutely.
So, yeah.
It's the same as the phablets. Like originally, well,
that's what I was going to say.
You had to be on AT&T, and then everybody who was on AT&T had one. They had to go to Verizon, and then everybody who wanted a smaller than 6-inch phone had an iPhone, but no one who wanted a bigger than 6-inch phone. So they had to make the Plus phone.
Yeah, when the Note came out, people mocked it, the Samsung Note, and now everybody makes them. We don't even use the term phablet anymore. They're all phablets, at least to Lori.
Yeah.
Well, and Apple also
but now you can't make small phones anymore because the chips are too big and hot and they can't run.
Oh, is that part of it? Oh, that's interesting.
That's the main reason, because space. They took the bigger phones were a real big pro and a real big con. They took the bigger, hotter LTE modems, which were coming out at the time, and then they used the bigger screens sort of shellac over them. But then they go, oh, look at the thermal envelope and power limit, the bigger power constraints we have on these. Let's just make those chips faster and hotter.
Well, and also
now if you try to just do that in a small one, it would just shut down.
Just say nothing about the battery size. Yeah,
I didn't even think of that. Okay, of course that makes sense. But
of course,
battery size,
headphone jack.
Battery size is a funny thing because you make the screen bigger, you need more battery. So I mean, I think your SE got great battery life, right?
Well, you
could make a new chip. It wouldn't be a $400 phone anymore. Like you could totally make a new iPhone SE. It would just require a different processor and a new design, A13. And then it's not $400 anymore.
Yeah, the A13 is too big for a little phone. Is that the problem?
Yes.
Okay.
But I think that Apple could do it because they're still putting into the product line phones with chipsets that are a lot older than they're what 3. I think the oldest chipset is 3 years old, 4 years old. So I don't think that it's a problem that can't be worked around. They just have to make sure that they test out every single platform and every single app to make sure that there's nothing that will absolutely not work on this device. I think that consumers are at the point right now where manufacturers are putting a way more power into these phones that any app or any user can really access. And if you were to tell somebody, I'm going to put in this is going to be a low power version of the iPhone in the sense that you will definitely get twice the battery life, or we're putting it in a smaller package so that you'll get 3 years ago performance, but you will be getting 2/3 the size.
I think the danger
that's hard to sell though. That's like their iPhone 5C sale, where it seems like just for Apple people, when they got the SE, a big part of it was smaller phone, current specs, and now with this new whatever the iPhone 9 or whatever it's called, it's home button but the current specs, and they seem to people really want the current specs from Apple, and they don't get them. They punch them.
But a lot of things changed in the past 5 years. I think that we really have seen an inflection of people really, really want to spend less money on phones, and there's a lot more resistance to the $1,000, $1,100, $1,200 phone. I think a lot has changed, and I'd love to see Apple be a little bit more experimental.
I think that part of the problem when you're rolling out new technology is the kind of the separation of your audience, and so having a lot of people. That's one of the advantages of developing for an iPhone is that a lot of people have similar people buying new phones have a similar experience. And I think that, especially as someone who's doing a bunch of AR tests right now, I can tell you that I'm using up all the phone. So right now we're the test that I'm doing. I'm putting in 2 million polygon, which to me is absurd because when I started working in real-time games, my budget was 20,000 polygons for an entire level. And now I'm doing 2 million polygons for one object that I'm throwing out there. But that's about as far as the phone can go, and so as we start to see more of that, coming in the not too distant future, I mean, we're already starting to see some AR stuff. I think that there's going to a lot of people are going to feel left out if they don't have a processor that can manage that.
But that's still outside on the edge. Augmented reality for now is still, in a couple of cases, a really good game or a really good demo, but it's not the sort of thing that people count on day in and day out. It's going to be their Insta filter.
I'll argue that's because the imagination of most people doing AR has been pretty like, let's do something really cool rather than let's do something really useful, and that's how you raise money. It's just not a way that you build a platform. And so I think that we'll probably this year see more sensible uses of AR that is kind of more of a day-to-day direction, and some of it has to do with knowing where the phone is, and so that that's going to help a lot too.
Yeah, but it's still something that if consumers had the ability to vote on these features, let's say that Apple did have 20 different models of phone. Not that I'm saying that would be a good thing for them to do, but if they had a table that said, for those of you who want to maximize battery life and portability, they would basically say, I really want Instagram. I don't even care about having real life Mickey Mouse ears as I do my video. I want Instagram. I want Facebook. I want Office. I want my email. They wouldn't necessarily. Their AR. I know there's a lot of possibilities there. I know that Tim keeps. It's one of the few things that Tim keeps explicitly speaking about in terms of future stuff that Apple would like to be very, very active in. But I'm saying that right now there is no really good use case. Google's really the only company that I can think of that's really waist deep in saying here is a version of Google Maps for interactive street direction. So I just believe that if the engineers are saying, well, gosh, it would be nice to make this thing smaller, it would be nice to have better battery life, it would be nice to do this, that, and the other, but that would compromise its ability to do really, really intense augmented reality. I think that would be a very bad trade.
Mostly just the regular camera stuff.
Well, consumers have already voted on whether they want a cheaper, a more inexpensive version of the iPhone. Though, if they did, then the SE would have outsold the 11. It hasn't.
Consumers have definitely voted on the larger phone community has definitely voted that they would much rather see really good $500 or $600 phones than really amazing $1,000, $1,100.
The iPhone 11 has outsold every other phone consistently since.
But Apple
launch.
doesn't offer a full range.
But Apple doesn't need the iPhone 11. The iPhone 11 is only competing with the iPhone 11. When you're talking about when I'm talking about people who the larger iPhone market, where someone walks into a store or walks into a market saying I could buy any phone I want with any operating system, the velocity of $500 phones to sub $500 phones is being.
iPhone
Carson, we got enough people on the panel. Thank you.
There was a really good British ad campaign where Dun Humby tried to explain advertising to people, and they said people don't buy electricity, they buy soap operas. They don't buy insurance, they buy white sofas. And it's the same thing with this. The predominant usage of this thing is photo filters and camera effects. And if you can't use the camera effects and photo filters that your friends are using, you feel bad, and nobody likes to feel bad about their purchases.
That's not really intensive.
Those
are really intensive.
Anything that adds
not the ones that people use.
Anything that adds a convolution kernel. So anything that's blurring, anything that's doing anything that's tracking.
What's a convolution kernel?
So the math in the images, if I'm just taking one pixel to the other pixel, that's really cheap, to do. So that putting one image over top of another image and just doing math between the pixels is cheap. Once I start talking to the pixels next to it, that's using a convolution kernel. And so once I start doing blurs, I start doing, kind of effects to the image. The reason that a lot of these things are very seamless is because we have a really powerful processor, and those processors
semantic
take a long
rendering.
Time. And because they're rendering, and we have to remember that we're rendering some of these in real time and some of these with 4K video in real time. As someone who started doing this a long time ago, it's kind of amazing what the phone does. But
how come you never told me about convolution kernels?
You know,
did you ask Leo?
He's been holding out.
I've been holding out.
He told you about deep trench isolation.
I don't know if I remember that either. Oh man, I feel like there's a whole new world that's opened up. First we talked about moisturizing, and now we're talking about convolution kernels.
If you want to learn about convolution kernels, there's I think the Calculate plugin is still in Photoshop, which is hidden as like one of the other things, and you have a little matrix, and you can actually put the numbers in of the calculation for the convolution kernel, and it's a great way to understand how it works. But
convolution is using a kernel to extract certain features from an input image. Oh, that's clear as mud.
Yeah. The bottom. Generally, when you're talking about that, you're talking about making calculations, from the images, from the pixels around that given pixel. So the pixels end result is some combination of all the pixels around it, which can be the ones that are immediately neighboring it, or the ones as you open that up, like so a Gaussian blur that's 7 pixels, or whatever, is going out that many pixels to average the color value of that given pixel. So, and for those of you who actually do this for a living, I'm simplifying this. I know.
Well, all I know is the kernel is not a filter. So I'm just
people
saying.
Don't understand this either. They just
the
know
core of all. I just read that.
Okay. The kernel's not a filter, but the filter's.
I have never felt so stupid in my life.
Well, no, but Leo, it's like most people don't know what this is, but they know that their phone doesn't have night mode, and why does the other phone have it and not my phone?
Convolution kernels?
Well, all the stuff that goes into making all of these computational features that we just want. We just want it to have. Like, do they care about semantic rendering? No, they hear the word deep fusion, and how come I can't take sweater photos like my friend can?
Oh, well. And so all the computational photography, a lot of those things are all using some pretty complex math.
Now that I see the formula, I think I understand that a lot better. Now it's, geez Louise.
It's a given.
Seriously, the Google blog has great explanations for a lot of the stuff.
This is why, as much as I love computer programming, I will never be a professional programmer, because I look at this and I just go, my eyes blur. I don't.
It's just simple calculus.
Like super res zoom is super interesting to read about.
Simple calculus.
So you can actually type these in. So just so you know, you can type these numbers in the Calculate.
You mean that matrix there?
It's probably where he generated these images.
Yeah.
That little matrix is available in Photoshop. I believe it's in the other filters, the Calculate.
So you could actually manually
type these in, and you'll get these effects.
This matrix. Okay. So is the center number in the matrix the actual image, and then these are the edges, the actual pixel, I should say, and the image, the ones around it are other pixels.
Right.
So, okay, well, that's not so complicated.
Right.
That's not...
Speak for yourself, Laporte.
It gets more complicated because as you start seeing these unsharp masks and Gaussian blurs that are wider, you're not
so
just
what
typing
you're talking about
in.
is
the
image pixel and the surrounding pixels. If the image pixel is 1 and the rest are 0, then it's exactly as the image was originally.
Yeah.
It's when you start modifying the edges, actually in the middle too, because edge detection would have a 0 for the pixel, and then you'd have numbers around the outside. All right, I get it. Well, that was easy. I don't know why that was so complicated. This is interesting, actually. Well, I remember hearing when the Knoll brothers first wrote Photoshop that the key to Photoshop was this
plugins.
These
right. Which John did most of the.
John Knoll understood that the modifications. The adjacent. Never mind. So why can't we have an SE again? Is that
you wouldn't be able to do a lot of these camera effects if you really started going down to like an A10 or an A8 or an A11 processor. You wouldn't be able to get some of the computational photography would no longer be valid.
But from a consumer standpoint, though, too. From a consumer standpoint, though, it's not even about. I mean, it is about like what you can or can't do with the phone. But if I'm going to buy a new phone, and for $400 I can buy a phone that's basically the same thing as a phone from 5 years ago, or for $200 more I can buy a phone that's today's tech standard, I'm going to go with that one.
Yeah.
So it's, and the other thing just is not even to dig into the details of it, but just from, a person going to buy a phone, it doesn't matter if it's a brand new SE, if all the specs inside it are still from 3 years ago, then we're going to look at that phone like it's 3 years old.
And the other thing is like, then you have people like my wife finally upgraded her phone because every time she sent me a picture of the kids, I would text back going, you need a new phone. 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 Like I was like,
my kids don't look like
but
this.
she did, honestly, she didn't care, and I might question what you say, Lori, because I don't know if people know that the guts are 3 years old.
But I think that
they're not looking at that. They're saying, well, that black slap of glass
when they
is $300.
have them, they don't. When they buy them, they do.
Maybe later. Their spouse says, "What's wrong with your picture?"
Well, and the thing is, you start looking at
you
your
need a new
pictures.
phone.
As soon as she saw them, as soon as she started taking the new pictures, she was like, "Oh, I can't believe I spent 3 years not buying the new phone."
Would she have noticed if you hadn't messaged her every?
Well, she does. She doesn't spend a lot of time. My wife doesn't spend a lot of time on social media, so she probably wouldn't see a lot of other things. But
I bet you normal. I was in a Verizon store. Talk about normal people. I was in a Verizon store yesterday, and they live in a different world than you and me.
My mom still uses a Razor.
The world of carrier incentives?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And the world of off-brand products that I'd never, they have like weird smart watches with names I've never heard of.
Right.
I mean, it's a different universe that they live in.
It's a J phone. It's fine. Just buy it.
Right.
And
I think
you'll love it.
That is important for us as journalists, early adopters, that we are kind of in a different, live in a slightly different world than the rest of the.
Yeah. It is important to, like, when you're on the subway and if you ride buses, make sure you pay attention to what kind of phones people are using on subways and buses, because that's the one. I think that's the one place where people of really wide economic range, from people who are making six figures, but the subway is the easiest way to get from point A to point B, to people who don't have cars. You see people using a lot of older phones. You see a lot of new phones that you can recognize aren't at the very, very top of the range. And there's a reason why Google, for instance, did so well with a $500 version of their Pixel phone. Now, the iPhone market is not the same as all the other markets, but there is a case to be made that as exciting as these $1,100, $1,200 phones are, it's also very, very exciting to the marketplace to have an affordable solution. That does not mean let's have a Celeron chip powered of LCD flip phone, but it does mean that it's easy to mistake all this wonderful augmented reality and all this wonderful night mode and computational photography for things that are non-negotiable and important things to have on a phone. There are going to be people who walk into the Verizon store or walk into the mall kiosk and they just say, they're not unhappy with their phone. They're unhappy with the fact that they dropped it in the toilet, and now they need to buy another one. And if they see one that does what they think is substantially what their old phone could do, that will save them $300. A lot of these people are going to be going for something that costs $300. That's all I'm saying.
And I think the question,
$9 3/4.
And the question really is that a market that Apple wants to compete in? And I don't know if it's
they don't have to, because they can force people.
There's a lot more people going to McDonald's than Ruth Chris, but Ruth Chris couldn't produce McDonald's hamburgers at that price. Like, and Apple may not be able to produce a solid phone at a discount. It just may not be how they're built. And so I think that, BMW can't produce a $6,000 car either. And so
that goes back to the flip phones too, because like Samsung can lose ungodly amounts of nation state money on all these phones, and it's not a major part of their business because they're fine. They make oil rigs and bathrooms. It's great. Apple, if they make a bad mistake, if they bet wrong, that's a substantial part of their business.
Well, but also Samsung will take a flutter on it. They don't have they have the position of making a lot of phones that aren't really that thrilling. They make a lot of really
so many
baffed up.
When you
simple,
get a free phone at the
phone
phone store for signing up, it's almost always a crap Samsung phone.
And it has Facebook on it, and you're fine.
Right.
Whereas every time I do think that Alex is right, that Apple may not have optimized itself to figure out how to be a thrifty manufacturer, but also that it would be a huge deal if they were to even explicitly do a 2-hour-long keynote in which 1 hour and 48 minutes of this keynote is Tim and all kinds of other engineers saying, we just happen to think that flip phones are really, really cool. And we know that there are some people who love to have like something that's very, very new. So we are explicitly telling you, everybody, that there's going to be some problems with this one. But if you want to help us develop it, by all means, be one of these early people. But again, we're saying there's going to be problems with it. As soon as these phones ship and 1% of them have problems, it's going to be Apple is doomed. Like, oh gosh, this would never have happened under Steve. So yeah, there are higher expectations for Apple, both internally and externally. And I think that sometimes it makes it harder for Apple to do part of the natural evolution of engineering, which is we have to ship what we have to ship because we're not going to figure out how to make it perfect inside the campus. We're only going to make it perfect once we start getting feedback from customers and damaged phones back into the house.
So according to a website, I don't know how sketch it is, imore.com. Actually, it's a rumor that comes from another website that probably is pretty sketch. March 31st is the date for the Apple event.
I don't know. So here's the thing. It's sketch in the fact that that's a total
iPhone ticker.
It's a prediction based on the past. So the last Tuesday
yeah, okay.
Yeah, it's not. I don't think this is some kind of amazing
There's no leak
as much as it's just. Well, Apple usually holds a March event the last Tuesday in March, okay. And that's the last Tuesday in March. So if they're going to hold an event, it's going to be March 31st. So it really kind of, it's less exciting than it sounds.
iPhone ticker
it's
does
really
say
just kind of
that they have sources within Apple that have confirmed that, however. And that, well, see, this is unclear. According to the site, sources within Apple, I can't read German, so I'm reading your translation, Lori. According to the site, sources within Apple have confirmed the details and revealed that the company will be hosting a March event where it will reveal the successor to the beloved iPhone SE, Tuesday, March 31st, with the launch of the new phone following Friday on April 3rd. So is it just based on past performance, or is it that they do have some information?
I didn't. So you can tell that I didn't write this particular news piece because I wouldn't have said this successor to the beloved iPhone SE.
Yes,
but
yes, you know better than that. Yeah. Tell Joe it ain't an SE, Joe.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, iPhone 9 Vorstellung an den Mars.
It's a successor to the iPhone SE price point.
Yeah.
Form factor.
Yeah, not to the form factor. What will they name it? 9? That's what this
iPhone Mother of Dragons. I'm going to stick with that.
This site's saying the iPhone 9.
I'm going to say they're going to call it iPhone Turtle Shell. Just
literally, like Phil and Jaws and Cayenne can walk up to the system and put in any name they want. They'll just do that based on what they think will sell the most phones.
Right. I didn't
know.
Renee
and I were having a discussion about that though, and there's this idea that I think is a good one. Not that Apple would do it, but that the 9 or SE2 or whatever you want to call it would be the first in the line of iPhones that just stop having a number associated with it or an extra name associated with it. They do this with the iPad, right? And with Mac, they don't have another title. They're either based on their size or they're based on the year that they came out. And it makes it actually a little easier to determine, which device you're talking about, but also harder to figure out which model you have.
Exactly. As someone who has a lot of these, it's so confusing and frustrating. Like I just wish you'd give them a number because
caller on the radio show said, because I said, well, get the $329 iPad. She said, well, what do they call that? I said, the iPad.
Right.
It's not.
It's the iPad 7th generation 2000.
Well, that's not going to help her at all.
It's like if Nissan called everything cars.
The car.
Just don't call it iPhone Home.
In a way, they do because the Toyota Corolla is always a Toyota Corolla.
Yeah.
You say the model year, but we don't even. I mean, I don't even know if that's.
It's just hard to
it's still that's like BMW is like, oh, I've got an M3, okay, but is it an M3 body style, whatever?
There's lots of M3s, yeah. So I didn't know about this,
Air.
but in Digitimes, they said the upcoming AirPod Pro Lite earphones.
No.
Yeah.
What the hell's that?
I don't think this is.
That was just them.
Legs.
Yeah. Okay.
Randomly accurate rumor site Digitimes leaks saying iPad Air Lite and Internet explodes.
An entry-level version of the AirPods Pro, which are not entry-level.
The AirPods.
$50.
Right. So like the entry-level version of the AirPods Pro
would be the AirPods.
Yeah. So the one thing that I can think is maybe this is based on some sort of information that maybe they're going to start making AirPods with ear tips. That's not AirPods Pro. There's a lot of things that the Pro model have, like active noise canceling, that it wouldn't have. But maybe
ear tips would be nice.
Yeah, so maybe that's what we're going to possibly see in the future is ear tips for the AirPods. That seems to make sense without calling it Pro Lite, which just that just doesn't make any sense to me. So.
I think Digitimes today said the 12-inch iPad Pro. Now everyone's wondering, is that a new one or the 12.9 inch? Does Digitimes not know how to type, or are they leaking a new device? We don't know. No clue. Nobody. I still can't tell.
So we don't know what the impact, to get back to the original story, of COVID-19 will be in the long run, but it might slow some things down. It might
hurt this year.
It's going to hurt revenue.
Yeah. It could slow the world down if it gets out of China. I mean, the whole thing can.
That's the thing. It's a big unknown right now.
Already slowing things down. Even even garment manufacturers outside of China, they're getting their zippers from China, and so they don't know when they can meet their manufacturing goals. So
it really emphasizes how dependent we all are on China.
I was going to say, like, a lot of those articles were saying, like, oh, look how dependent we are on China. And I just have to keep reminding them, if anything happens in Silicon Valley, it's not going to be funny either. Right. I mean, like, if aliens land in Silicon Valley, we're going to have a really bad year. So maybe it's not.
We're interdependent in this modern world. We're all interdependent on one another.
The real question over the next 2 to 4 years is, or 5 to 10 years, is whether China can now maintain being the supplier for everyone between the trade war.
This will stimulate.
And there's this
kind of a look.
A lot of people are going to be thinking about, like, where else can we build factories?
Where could you go?
India, Brazil, there's.
You're already there in both cases because of tariffs in those two countries,
right?
Or restrictions on what can can be sold that isn't made. Bulgaria.
I think Bulgaria.
But there's one thing that there's one component of this that we're missing out on. That it's not the factories and it's not the supply, it's the labor. Every single business is dependent upon labor, and yet this is the resource that, particularly in the United States, we are treating the most poorly. So if you want to see Armageddon coming in the future, find out a situation in which you cannot find people to do the work that you need them to do.
Well, I think that's number one is you can definitely, and as as machines continue to augment the human labor, I think you're going to actually be able to pay the labor more and put it in different places, because you're going to have, right now it's just so many people that are required to do stuff by hand, and that's typically going to continue to move along. But there's plenty of places in the world that can still be built. I mean, affordably.
Renee, fill us in on the Blue Mail story. Apple banned Blue Mail and has now brought it back. What is Blue Mail?
Actually, I have not been followed. I only followed this remotely. But yeah, it was another case of them saying that Apple was stomping on their rights to individual apps for their own benefit, and Apple saying that no, this app introduced valid concerns into the system, and then everyone losing it over it.
Apple, okay. Blue Mail says Apple stole its anonymous sign-in feature.
Yeah.
For sign-in with Apple. We created it. Apple made it sign-in with Apple, and then Blue Mail says they kicked it out of the App Store on flimsy pretenses to suppress competition. Apple says, no, we removed it for security reasons, but now Blue Mail is back in the App Store. Blix, the publisher, had published an open letter urging small developers to join forces and fight Apple. So yeah, this is one where we're only looking from the outside, and it's hard to know.
There's two problems with this. Is like with the App Store, there's a problem with Apple abusing it and being wrong, but there's also a problem with Apple being right and it being inconvenient to be right, because it looks like abuse. It looks like they're being a bully, and both of those things are damaging.
I don't use Blue Mail, so I don't have any experience. Blix sued Apple for patent infringement over sign-in with Apple, and the company says we're not going to drop that suit. On the other hand, Blix did submit a new version of Blue Mail that respected Gatekeeper. Well, that seems like a good thing.
Yeah, a little bit.
Fixed technical problems, including an issue that produced privacy and security warnings for users at launch. You might not want to use an app where you get that kind of warning.
Especially mail.
Yeah. But anyway, so we don't know what's really going on. I was hoping somebody would know.
Part of the problem is that even in the discussions between Apple and a developer, Apple will not be transparent on the reasons why they removed you from the store. They will just simply say, you violated this part of the terms, and then the developer will come back saying, actually, no, we didn't. You told us exactly what to do, and we did exactly as you asked. And then that's another month or two in which you're trying to figure out exactly what's going on. And that's once you're frustrated to that point, it's a good time to start calling people and saying, hey, Apple is locking us out of the App Store. We don't know why. Maybe it's because they don't like our giving people an alternative solution to the generator random email address that people you can give out to people without getting spammed and without getting targeted.
Yeah. Let's take a break. When we come back, lots more to talk about. Andy Anako's here. Boston Public Radio's Andy Anako, Anako.com. From imore.com/vector, Rene Ritchie, his boss from managing editor at iMore. She's not responsible for Joe, though. Lori Gill. Joe's
not it.
Joe's an island of his own. And,
bad day to be Joe.
That's not a successor to the SE. And the emails are flying now. And
Joe, report to the conference room. Joe to the conference room.
And Alex Lindsay now of 090.media. But also on the Twitter at Alex Lindsay. Our show today brought to you by Health IQ. And this is of great interest to anybody who is healthy, who pays attention to what you eat, gets 8 hours of sleep, exercises 4 or more times a week. If you're a healthy person, you deserve better life insurance rates. Of course you do. You're healthier. But unfortunately, the way the industry is structured, you don't always get those rates. It's often the healthy people, the people who know what they're doing, who pay for the unhealthy people. Health IQ is a concierge life insurance company that uses science and data to convince the top 30 life insurance companies in the world to give you lower life insurance rates because you're healthy. As an example, $1 million policy from $36 a month, you will on average save 41% on your life insurance premiums, depending on your score and other qualifying factors. Your score comes from the patented Health IQ quiz. This is really clever. It's the first scientific way to assess your own health literacy, knowledge assessment, not self-assessment. They put together a team of the nation's leading medical, health, and fitness experts to create this quiz, and it's kind of the eye of the needle through which you must pass to get these great rates. They want to see, are you healthy? Do you know about taking care of yourself? If you do, you're going to save big on your life insurance. If you're a runner, a cyclist, you're into CrossFit, you're another kind of athlete. I go to the gym 5 days a week. Maybe you're a vegetarian or vegan. You deserve to be rewarded. We all do for our hard work with better rates. But sometimes to life insurance companies, you're just a number. Health IQ breaks through that to give you white glove service, walks you through the entire process of applying the policy, as I said, underwritten by one of the top 30 insurance companies. And you're going to get savings exclusive to Health IQ. Savings they've negotiated. You're not going to find them anywhere else. But you got to qualify. So here's what you do. You go to healthiq.com/MacBreak and take their proprietary Health IQ quiz today. Depending on how you score, you might be saving 41% on your life insurance premiums. Plus, it's fun. You'll learn a lot. And once you complete the quiz, you'll talk to your Health IQ concierge. He or she will walk you through the process. They're really nice people. They can help you get the savings you've earned for your healthy lifestyle. You're paying too much if you're not using Health IQ. HealthIQ.com/MacBreak. HealthIQ.com/MacBreak. We thank them for supporting MacBreak Weekly. Another quick mention. Last chance. Just a few more days on our survey. It's the we don't track you. We don't pay attention to anything about you. We just like it that you listen. But every once in a while, about once a year, we ask a few questions to get to know you better. It helps us design shows that fit your needs better, but it also helps us when advertisers say, well, who's listening? We are not collecting information about you personally. We don't ask for any personal information. We just want to know in aggregate a little bit more about our... I got an email from somebody who said, well, you say, what operating system do you use? I use a bunch of them. Just pick the one you listen to podcasts most on. That's the one that we're interested in.
I think we should do technology for cats.
Nope. Nobody agrees.
There's a cat, but not a lot of people voted.
Look at that. Which type of pet do you currently have?
So
you can't have more than one.
Right.
Oh, well, that must be, we must be talking to somebody about that, I guess.
But not enough people have voted
Maybe
on
Purina wants to buy some kitty chow ads. I do those. Anyway, we appreciate you taking it. You can go to twit.tv, our website. There's a link at the top there, but just for a couple more days. Or the short URL, which is twit.to/survey20, our 2020 survey. About to close, but we want to get your input, so please do that today. I wonder if you all read this article. It came out a couple of days ago. The Paywalled Garden, iOS's adware, Steve Streza. Now, that's a little bit of a link-baity ad. title, but he does make an excellent point. He says, you and I, most of the people listening to the show, we all sign up for Apple Music and iCloud services and extended warranties, et cetera, News Plus, Arcade. But those who don't, and he said you can learn this for yourself if you install iOS 13, create a new iCloud account, and don't sign up for Apple services, are bombarded with pitches. And I have to say, I've seen some of these. Bad. Even in violation of Apple's own standards for other third-party apps. You agree, Rene?
Yeah, so I think there's Apple traditionally has had a bit of a war going on internally where they had like the user experience people who were adamant that you would not so much as send a push notification, and the business people who were like, okay, dinosaur, the company has to survive beyond you. And the minute they went on vacation, they would send those push notifications. And those are still fighting factions.
It's so funny. We have that battle at TWiT. Because most of my staff wants us to run more promos for the other shows. And I say, no. I don't want to run promos for the other shows, even though they're my shows. I feel like we're doing a thing here. I don't want to.
But yeah, no, so totally. And some people feel like it's not just leaving money on the table, but you're fundamentally threatening the ongoing future of the business by not actively promoting it. Yep. But then also there's this other level of concern.
Lisa tells me every night when we go to bed, you're threatening the business.
There's this other thing though too, is where like discoverability, because there are people who legitimately don't know how to get Apple Care or don't know how to find something. And iOS has become, like any modern phone system, is not that transparent to an end user. So you want to have some element of discovery, but you don't want to annoy people. You want to have some ability to make money, but you don't want to destroy the experience. And I think Apple has gone, they were maybe too minimal before, and now they're way too maximal, and they really need to find a way better balance in between.
He says it doesn't get that much coverage because people like us, we're all signed in. We're all in anyway on the Apple ecosystem, so we don't see those ads.
But it's the little things. It's like it turns out there's a limit to how many devices you can have on Apple Pay, and I found that limit because I just kept activating review devices, and it said no more. And so now on a bunch of phones, I have that you didn't finish setting up. Right. And I try to make that, and if I see a notification, if I see a number on something, I keep tapping it. I can't not tap it, and it won't go away, and it kills me, and I feel the pain that he's talking about so severely there.
He says Apple has a rule for other developers: push notifications must not be required for the app to function and should not be used for advertising, promotions, or direct marketing purposes, or to send sensitive personal or confidential information. Obviously, Apple is using it for promotions and advertising and direct marketing. It's their platform, so I could, they kind of have a right to do it and they have a right to say others can't.
Are you able to turn them off? You can turn them off, right? Turn off notifications.
Not really.
Some of them, like the notifications about, like I wish there were a button that says "Hell no, Catalina," but unless you take actions to have it stop putting up a pip inside software update, say, "Oh, you have updates available. Did you know that Catalina has a wonderful plan for your life?"
Well, here's an example.
They don't let you go out.
Most people, if they put music on their phone, if they synced it up or whatever, put music on their phone, would use Apple's music app to play the music. But it really isn't Apple's music player app. It's Apple Music. And so as you're listening, you're going to get, for instance, try the all-new lyrics experience. He says, well, that looks like just a feature, right? I'm going to click Get Started. And then, of course, but first you have to sign up for Apple's music. And so there's a lot of that. Now, I don't use Apple's music player to play music. There are third-party choices. But everybody probably just says, well, it says music, that must be the music player, right? So I understand that's a legit criticism. I mean,
absolutely. And I'm sorry, go ahead, Lori.
If it were just a couple of times a month, you might see an ad pop up in the music app or on the news app or something like that. It would be okay. It's a little bit of a reminder, but when I sign out, I see it everywhere. I'm constantly reminded of these services that I'm not signed into, or if I hadn't not subscribed to. It's everywhere. It permeates these services that they have. I don't know if they have plans once these things have kind of taken off, if maybe they'll pull back on how much they advertise, but it really is kind of frustrating to be somebody who doesn't. The news app is where I see it a lot. I do pay for News Plus, but I would, if I'm not signed in to Apple ID for some reason, I'll just start scrolling through the news app, and every 3 or 4 sections, there's another ad for News Plus.
Right.
Get News Plus, get News Plus, get News Plus. It happens all over the place on that page.
And I think part of it is you're obviously when a big part of your business is subscribe, they want to, it annoys you to be
the new
in
model.
Space.
Well, they made a promise, right?
Apple.
Like they said, they said they're going to make massive amounts of subscription revenue, and they'll take Google's money to do it. But that's App Store, which makes it hard for them to crack down on scam ads. That's Google search revenue, which makes it hard for them to push DuckDuckGo. And that's subscription, which makes it hard for them to offer a better user experience at the expense of pushing subscriptions.
Right.
Sorry, Andy,
that's why I think that good. No, that's okay. That's why I think that part of good user interface is to have not just a no button or dismiss button, but a hell no button. You can call it something more polite, but basically say that yes, I have seen this. I have seen this alert. I've considered it, but I don't want this. I don't want you to ever remind me about this ever again. And so I don't. There are a lot of really good arguments for why Apple has a certain right to put out these push notifications, part of which being that it is so easy for them to get rid of them once they decide that they want to remove them as a blight on the earth, which is a harder problem when it's a third-party app. But I really think that if they really did think that this was a problem and they really did want to solve it, they could say no and don't remind me ever again.
I agree. I think that would be the right thing to do. The app sell is a long-standing American tradition. When I was in high school, I worked at McDonald's. You were taught at every order, at the end of the order, would you like fries with that? Or how would you like a nice hot apple pie?
What would you like to eat with your Starbucks coffee?
Just 30 cents more.
That's normal. And I suppose
the tolerance is
tolerable to the customer. They're going to hear it and they're going to say no thanks. But
the tolerance is different though. Like when I bought a Panasonic Blu-ray player and it starts playing pre-roll before the Blu-ray that I put in, I took it back. Like I didn't get a free Blu-ray player that I had to put up with ads. I bought one, and now even like Amazon Prime, they do pre-roll now, and I'm like, no, I paid you. Like don't put that pre-roll there. And I think like some people, and it makes people anti-ad, which is bad for everybody because like podcasts depend on ads, and people start thinking ads are evil instead of just bad implementations.
Thank you for saying that. That's really true.
I will say that once I pay for a service, I expect to never see an ad. And I know that we pay for newspapers and magazines.
You buy
and
an
iPhone
ad, and you didn't pay for the service, and you're using Apple Music.
I have to admit, I'd be kind of like, oh, that's what I get.
It's just another ad.
For me, the big challenge is like I don't use any of the Google AdSense or any of the YouTube ads. I use sponsorships, and the people who pay for YouTube Premium get super upset because they still see a sponsorship in my thing, and I have to point out I'm actually not using any of Google's stuff.
Yeah,
right.
Hey, I should have asked you this when we were talking about Blue Mail. Do you see a lot of sign in with iPhone yet?
Starting to.
I feel like there's not as many as I would have thought. Everybody would have done this, right?
They delayed a lot. Apple stopped delayed enforcement of it because there were a lot of edge cases. Like, for example, Gmail shouldn't have to offer you Facebook login or login with Apple. They can just offer you Google. And there was a handful of things they had to change and guidelines that they ran into when developers started implementing it. So February was when they started coming out, and I expect we'll see more as the year progresses.
I like it. I always use it if I have it as a choice. I think it's a good way to do it.
Some of them are tricky.
As somebody who tests out programs and apps like early, like usually in beta, it's been a frustrating experience for me because I'll have to sign up before sign in with Apple becomes available. So I've already signed in with my Gmail account or whatever, and then like, oh, they have sign in with Apple and I couldn't use it. Oh no.
Well, it's also a frustration because I was stupid in my youth and signed in with Facebook a lot. And then I killed my Facebook account, and I suddenly realized, oh my God, I can't get into any of those apps anymore. Right. So there can be negatives. But I don't think that's going to happen with Apple. I think I'll probably always have an Apple device of some kind.
I definitely think
it is another example of how Apple has to walk a really, really sensitive line here, where having sign-in by Apple is so good for consumers because the biometric sign-in that's on so many Apple devices is so easy and it works so very well. Yeah. But nonetheless, when they make it a requirement for all developers that you have to support this standard that we Apple are trying to promote, and which is going to help push sales of our own devices by by upsurging adoption of our hardware, not only to our existing base, but also to to sellers, to also to point of sale. You have to, their motives can be absolutely pure, but they have to pursue this in such a way so that even Caesar's wife is beyond reproach, so to speak.
I think the problem that developers have is that consumers want it so badly that they don't really care what they think. Like the consumers are, like they're going to be, it's going to get to a point within 2 years where I won't sign into anything that doesn't give me that button.
The privacy.
Like I'm just going to be like, nah, I don't need your service anymore.
More like security.
If you do sign in with Apple, shouldn't the place also say, now give us a password too in case you're doing it? Like, say I sign in with Apple for something that I now use on a Windows machine or an Android device. I would like a password.
You can. I'm sure that you'll be able to get that.
I think they should always offer.
Well, but those are. Yeah, so you should have the service should offer a password, but
yes.
The whole point of signing with Apple is the one
no password. I understand.
The no password thing. Yeah, but the service.
But as I learned to my horror that if you do a sign in with Facebook and you quit your Facebook account, there's no second channel. There's no other way to do it. So,
we had to do it for a bunch of Pokemon Go accounts because people when we were bought by Future, all the Mobile Nations accounts were going away. They were all getting Future
and you
accounts.
all
And some of us
with
had
your
signed
Mobile
up.
Nations
So you had to go to use it, log in by Facebook and then add a different Google account and then get rid of the login and if you didn't have a Facebook account.
What a pain.
Did you have to call an all staff, have one of those Facebook style everybody into the break room? So we have to discuss now.
Intervention.
We know there are a lot of rumors about your access to Pokemon Go as affected by.
But for some people it wasn't Pokemon Go.
Like there was 401k. We don't care about people getting fired. Does this acquisition mean we won't be able to access Pokemon Go? You have a very cool corporate culture.
But for some people it wasn't Pokemon Go. Like it was just we write a lot about it, so that was one of the biggest outliers. But for everybody, it was like a couple apps that they'd only ever signed into from their work Google account, and that was going away. And what are you going to do? And luckily, quote unquote, luckily, you could add a Facebook account, remove the old Google account, add a new Google account. But some services don't have that. It's just like, sorry, and they won't change it for you. You can beg and plead all you want. They won't do anything for you. So it is a huge dependency.
Yeah. So I got a little irate with Malwarebytes.
Yes.
Yeah. You too?
Yeah.
So Malwarebytes.
Pretty weird.
Yeah, they're an antivirus company. So as soon as an antivirus company says, "Oh, it's a big problem," buy our antivirus, it's a little sketch. But they release every year their State of Malware report, and this year they said malware. The big takeaway was malware threats on the Mac increased exponentially, and in fact, Macs outpace Windows in threats per endpoint. That's the metric they're using. By 2 to 1. In other words, according to Malwarebytes, you're twice as likely to have malware on your endpoint if you're using a Mac. Is that true? What? I know.
Right.
It's not my experience.
Yeah.
Yeah,
no, they're conflating a lot of things as malware in those articles, and they're also using a very specific period of time. And Apple has mitigated some of the stuff was adware, and Apple has added mitigations for those things. Jason Snell wrote a wonderful article.
Almost all of it was adware, I should say.
Yes.
By the way.
Yes, and also are they counting things where you go to a website and it downloads an exe file? Because that happens to me. And is that considered
harmless?
Malware? I think they are. I think they are counting it, but I don't think
they're counting it. Yeah, because it doesn't infect you because it's an exe.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it almost feels like somebody in the corporate offices at Malwarebytes said, we need to sell more Malwarebytes to Mac users. What can you do to help us here?
Yeah, I think that the Jason Snell's article was very, very good. One of the reasons why, and also afterwards, I got a certification that was very, very good, that Malwarebytes is upset with Jason, and Jason is fighting back because Jason is good and Jason is Jason.
Oh, good. Well, let's They're
having a legit Twitter beef. Like. let's put 6colors.com. Jason's article, sleazy adware targets Mac users and Apple steps up its game. Is this the article? This is the Malwarebytes report. He says the key here is to differentiate between adware, pups, potentially unwanted programs, and malware. The top 29 bad actors tracked by Malwarebytes were adware or pups, not malware. I still think your Mac is much more secure than any Windows machine. That just kind of
And I think that's the takeaway people get from this report is, oh my God. And of course, the report recommends, what do they recommend? Install Malwarebytes, which I do not recommend. Does anybody here on this panel, would any of you say, yeah, you should have Malwarebytes in your Mac?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, if you have a specific problem, an infection, maybe as a tool to remove it. But best practices, and it's the same best practice PC or Mac. Like just best practices will save you most of any form of headache on a Mac.
And I feel like, I mean, certainly on Windows 10, I'm telling people you no longer need to install antivirus software because Windows 10 has antivirus software.
Yeah,
that's as good as anything you're going to install, and is not going to slow down your machine, and is sandboxed, so it's not going to open holes on your machine.
Some of it is as bad as malware. Like some of the anti-malware stuff is as bad as malware.
Yeah. On the Mac, I think between Gatekeeper, which is an excellent technology, and the kind of hidden stuff Apple's doing behind the scenes to scrub malware, I feel like you're pretty well protected. There isn't a antivirus per se on a Macintosh.
There's anti-malware. There is an anti-malware layer that intercepts and quarantines a lot of programs. So it doesn't announce itself. They don't talk about it, but they update it continuously, and it's always running in the background of the last three generations of
More
macOS.
Important than defending Apple here, should somebody now be scared because of this Malwarebytes report? Is this something to worry about? Are we really now a bigger target than we used to be?
Absolutely not. The thing is, we have not seen any sort of an increase in anything that will amount to infections, anything that amount to hijacking, anything that would even amount to inconvenience. This is a large. It would be absolutely 100% wrong for someone to think that Macs simply don't get malware and they don't get infected because, for instance, a targeted approach is still a Mac is still pretty nearly as vulnerable as any other platform out there. So if someone specifically wants to get at the data on your machine, and because you're a very, very valuable target, someone could probably be able to do that. But in terms of thinking that this is like Windows,
is there ransomware in the Mac universe?
None that I've seen, and it's really mostly affecting. The reason why it's mostly affecting government systems and big corporate systems is because a lot of them can't afford, can't afford in terms of money or in terms of downtime to upgrade weaker and older versions of Windows. Their infections on modern machines are very, very low. It's mostly if you have a huge network of legacy devices. The number of county computers that are still running on 8-year-old versions of Windows is very, very high. I've not heard of a ransomware attack that worked on a Mac platform,
or even a modern platform. I think almost all the ransomware have been older machines that haven't been updated.
In an interview with Recode, Malwarebytes Mac expert Thomas Reed, being quoted here by Jason Snell, there's a rising tide of Mac threats hitting a population that still believes that Macs don't get viruses. I still frequently encounter people who firmly believe this and who believe that using any kind of security software is not necessary or even harmful. This makes Mac OS a fertile ground for the influx of new threats, whereas it's a common knowledge that Windows PCs need security software. Wrong on both counts. Just self-serving. I wish I could use the word that the president used.
That's not a really great way to defend yourself against the claim that you're stoking fear.
Yeah.
The thing is, it's like Rene said. A lot with Windows and with Macs, your antivirus protection, your malware protection is baked right in. The most effective versions are the kinds that you don't necessarily know are even working. And there's I don't know if you checked Jason's Twitter. Thomas Reed basically said the same thing to Jason, saying, "I take exception to some of the tone in this article, especially its characterization of me as quote stoking fear unquote. And the statement Macs don't get viruses is a statement that's still overwhelmingly true. I see so many people getting infected because they believe this." And Jason saying, "Well, as I wrote, it's valid to wonder if the Mac's reputation for being a safe harbor leads some Mac users to make bad security choices. That said, I do think you and your employer are stoking fear, and that Malwarebytes benefits from that fear. I'm not surprised you take exception." Boom.
So, yes. Thank you, Jason. Bravo. We should get Jason on the show. I haven't seen Jason in a while. I miss him.
Yes.
The Mac does not have, let's say it right now, the Mac does not have more malware than Windows. No. There are minor adware and hijackers and things that aren't malware.
Again, being targeted is one thing, but what we think of as widespread malware is just not happening.
And good hygiene is still a good idea. You know, like
yeah, mostly it's behavioral though.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's stuff. You know, like when people send me, I have to admit, I push back when people send me, mostly from my kids' school. You'll get someone sends an email where they just did 2 to 400 people. Yeah. You know, like, you know, and I get the nice little email back. Like, I know you're really busy, but blind CC is a good thing. You know, like, you know, it keeps us all out, because otherwise you don't know where that email is coming from. Once someone's been pushed over, then they, you know, their entire email list is now, you could get something that looks like it's coming from someone you know, and it's not. And so, you know, but good hygiene and you know, is a useful thing.
Yeah. All right. I read that, and you know, it's funny because there's the lizard mind, which goes, and then there's the tech guy. You know, I talk to people on the radio, and I'm always reevaluating my long-held belief that you shouldn't run antivirus software on either Windows 10 or Macintosh. You're well protected by the operating system itself. And so I just wanted to run that by you one more time. I ask, poor Steve Gibson, our security guy, I ask him this every month. Should I run a virus now? No. Do you run a virus, Steve? No. Okay. Just checking.
Also, by definition, an antivirus app has to have pretty high permissions in order to be able to observe everything that's going on inside the CPU, right? So that is something that is best left to the operating system itself.
Yeah. And thank goodness, you know, both Apple and Microsoft late to the game, but both Apple and Microsoft take that responsibility seriously and do, in fact, attempt, and I think mostly successfully, to protect you. Now, having said that, I will defend Malwarebytes. There are occasions where it's a useful tool. What I would do is download it, run it, and then delete it.
Yeah.
So there are cases both on Windows and Mac where that's useful to get rid of kind of annoyances like Adware.
And there's other ones like Dr. Antivirus. Yeah. I don't know if those are...
I'd be really careful, though. The other thing that I also really warn people about on the radio show, remember on the radio show I feel like I'm dealing with normal people, is get it from malwarebytes.com. malwarebytes.com. They don't make it easy. Mm-hmm. and of course every virus author in the world has a variation of that name ready to go. So
I'm also super paranoid. Like once I believe a machine is compromised, I don't want to run Malwarebytes or anything on it. I want to nuke that thing down to the atoms and rebuild it, because I just don't know what else. Like I don't know what they might miss, what else is lying in wait there, something that's not activated yet. Once I can't trust it, I can't trust it, and I just want to rebuild it.
Right. Now we should say that defracking your hard drive is still something you should do every week. Joking.
What about the EPRAM? Should I EPRAM it right now?
Yeah, EPRAM it.
Talking like you haven't even rebuilt your desktop recently. Come on.
There is Dr. Flay in our chat room who is I'm in a constant running battle with, because he's always saying, no, you have to have antivirus software. But he does make an excellent point. The best way to protect yourself is to have external protection, as most businesses do, on the edge, in between the internet and your internal network, because then it's not sitting on your computer. It's not going to become malware itself. And a lot of home routers now, the Eero, our sponsor Eero as an example, offer that kind of protection in the home too. And I don't see any reason not to have that. In fact, a lot of people use Gmail, which there's good reason to use Gmail, because it stops a majority of ransomware phishing attacks. They don't even come to your inbox. And so that kind of protection, I think, is good. And I encourage people to use that if that's available to you.
And VPN is good if you can build that into your system, of being able to VPN back home. That's going to help protect a lot of things that you're doing when you're using a public Wi-Fi.
Right.
One of the things to do is set something up to allow yourself to have a VPN wherever you are.
I think the thing that terrifies me is that we have 25 people here of varying skills in technology. Some of them are normal people. And if any one of them were to open a phishing email and get malware on their system, we have a lot of Windows systems too, get malware on their systems, that could take us off the air and cause problems. So I'm always asking Russell, what are we doing about that? And he says, don't worry, we're doing a lot. We're protecting you. And so we don't have to worry about that. And I think training your employees and learning yourself, if you're going to use a general purpose operating system, not an iPad or a Chromebook, there's a burden on you to learn a little bit about protecting yourself and what not to do online, right?
Yep.
Don't install that Russian wallpaper everybody's talking about.
But it looks pretty.
It's so
yeah.
pretty.
Hey, I can't believe you saps are actually paying money for software. I found a Reddit that posts links to you can download it for free. Like, oh, honey.
Oh, yeah. I think some of that, you deserve what you get.
Yeah. It's like, there's a bag that there's a Filson bag that I really, really want to get, and it costs $350. And wow, Amazon has like lots of sellers selling them for $250. Like, there's a reason why they have that they have them for $250, sweetie. It's because it's not a real bag.
Should also admit that there is an uptick in not malware exactly, but adware, spyware, and other stuff on the Mac
market's become worth it for them.
Yeah.
Like, it's always been an economic crime, and the Mac market, because of like the iPhone hail and everything, has become more worth it for them to invest in.
Right.
It's more valuable.
I just have 2 words: drone strike. That's what we really need. We need to stop messing around with this whole we're going to have a good firewall. We're just going to find out where you're sending it, and then we're going to send something else to you.
If you work at an Apple store, Apple employees sued because they said, "Hey, when we get to work, we have to go through a search, and when we leave work, we have to go through a search, and Apple's not paying us for that." California Supreme Court says, you know what? Apple has to pay retail employees for the time they spend waiting for bag searches at the end of a shift.
Yep.
So, and of course they do. Apple's stance was, well, you could just leave your bag at home.
Yeah, that's such a insensitive thing to say. Well, just don't bring a bag. That just takes zero humanity into consideration whatsoever.
And honestly,
it's kind of sad to hear that as a response.
Apple makes more per employee, more per square foot in its Apple stores than even Tiffany. You could pay $1 or $2 extra.
Yeah.
Some things just shouldn't go to the lawyers, or let them go. Like, if you don't want to pay them extra, let them go half an hour beforehand and say that that's part of your work time. Like, either way, just say, if I can't leave, you are paying me.
I think this is more of a behavioral issue. So I've worked in a lot of secure facilities, and or gone in and out of them. I haven't worked at them, but I've gone in and out of a lot of secure facilities. Nobody has a bag because you know why? Because the line gets too long.
Right.
And if you go in with a bag that they have to go through, everybody behind you
has
is
to
like,
wait.
What are you doing? They just look at you like you are crazy. Like you've just
don't you know better?
This all up. And so you get used to the idea that now I've also packed really heavy into places that do that, and then people are really annoyed with you. But the point is that there is a behavioral thing here of we're not going to pay you for it because what we'd like you to do is just not do that. And so I have a feeling that was more of it wasn't trying to save money as much as it was trying to have people not create this big long line of all these people that are bringing stuff in that they don't need for work. It's one thing to bring your phone in and check it out, but like if I was getting checked every day on the way in, I would bring my phone. Like that's
we're talking, Alex. We're talking about like retail employees, people who sometimes take the bus or something like that, who carry like their change of clothes and their lunch and all of that kind of stuff. It's I don't think it's that easy to convince me, or it's not that easy to say just don't bring a bag when people's lives are in their bag and they need to bring those to work because of everything they do getting to that job and then leaving from that job. And that's something you kind of have to think about too, is that it's not necessarily that people could just hop on out to their car to get something that they need. That maybe everything that they need is why they bring that in to their store.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's a common complaint that's happening across all kinds of different hourly wage industries. And like I was saying before, you can't get your business, you can't do your business without labor. And if you are you don't necessarily have to pay everybody you hire $200,000 a year and give them full medical, but there is certain basic dignity that is non-negotiable, particularly when you just announced you had the greatest quarter ever.
Yeah, so it's not seemly.
Again, I don't think it's money. I think it's just behavioral.
I think I don't think it's necessarily money or behavior. It's like it would never occur to there's a certain level of management, not at Apple but everywhere, where it's like, well, it would never even occur to them that the 10 minutes that someone might spend having to wait to get their bag checked is time they should be paid for. They would never consider that. Why would we they're already checked out. Why would it inconvenience them at all to have to not be paid for 10 minutes in which they're being forced to do a bag check? That's how labor becomes invisible to management. And that's part of a really huge problem.
45 minutes in some cases, according to the court.
Yeah, exactly. Case, yeah. Sorry, I was minimizing it. But.
Instagram We now know why there's no Instagram app on the iPad. Oh, thank God we've cleared this up. Adam Mosseri, who's
the answer is so simple.
It's so simple. Adam Mosseri, who is the current CEO of Instagram, answered a few user questions on his story. And, of course, probably the number one question is, where the hell's the iPad app? Adam says, we'd like to build an iPad app, but we only have so many people and lots to do, and this just hasn't bubbled up. They can't afford to.
What did James Thompson or any of the lone single developers who do every single platform in their sleep think about this kind of stuff?
We can't afford. They're owned by Facebook. What? We can't afford to. So why do you think? What's your theory? Why? I mean, obviously that's not the reason.
I'm sure it's a demand issue. Like you're it's another spoke that you have to support, and how many people are actually going to use their iPad for Instagram? And they're probably deciding it's probably less than a couple percent. And
I think they're wrong. I would use not necessarily to create Instagram posts, but to read Instagram posts.
Browsing, yeah,
that's like a natural way to do it.
There are things you can't do on Instagram except for through the mobile app, and part of it is participating more liberally in likes, responses, that sort of thing. And it's of course they don't have a big market for iPad users because you're not supporting iPad users. You should actually release the app just on principle and then find out how many people are using your app. The thing that offends me is that I would be almost okay with this if they said if they made an official statement, because there's a lot of questions about it. Oh, we have an official statement on why we don't support the iPad with an official iPad app. We don't want to.
Yeah.
Thank you for coming.
Yeah. That's kind of what he's saying in a nice way, I guess.
Yeah, we have other things. Sometimes it's the same thing. It's like, well, we've gotten such great feedback over our new keyboards. People just seem to love it. Like, okay.
I got in a lot of trouble on Twitter for saying that I thought it was because they still code with React Native, and their iPhone app keeps breaking the minute even the same size device comes around and it freezes. And they said, no, we've got rid of most of our React Native. So I can't explain the bugs either, but it's just such a weird thing to say. And Mark Zuckerberg said that a while back, if you remember, before the iPad for Facebook app came out, he just said, Facebook iPad isn't a mobile device, so we're not supporting it, which was equally
also
curious. Yeah.
But that may be, that may be more unintentionally honest, because I think the real issue, and Retcon5 in our chat room is saying this, is that they want you to use it on a smartphone because they can get a lot more information, location and stuff from a smartphone than they can on the iPad.
Well, they lose carrier information. They lose some device identity information, but just by Wi-Fi and just by proximity to other things, they could get a lot of data. I mean, it just comes down to, you're not telling me that you cannot afford to create and support an iPad app. So don't tell me that it's because you don't have the money to do this or the human power to do this.
It's actually
especially
not
when Apple puts those cameras on it. It's going to be first class photography citizen.
Yeah.
It's not as crazy. Most of these companies are in a constant shortage of quality programmers. The world has run out of those. And now there's lots of programmers, and that's why all the kids can code, and that's why
if you have an iOS app, making an
it's
iPad
a universal binary
isn't so difficult.
But I understand. But it's still somebody that in a company. It's still going to be a product manager. It's going to be a product marketing manager. It's going to be, 2 or 3 coordinators. It's going to be, now 4 or 5 programmers, and then it's going to be, it's a team of 10 or 15 people in a company this size. It's not one person managing. It's just not how it works there. So it's going to be 10 or 15 people that are now accountable for the iPad activation. And they have to decide whether they want to take people that are already experienced to do that, and so it's and they're just saying it's not It's not that they don't. It's not a priority. They have many other things. Again, and they have to fight. These teams have to fight every day for every programmer they have.
There are 400,
like the Instagram stories would just be awkward on it. 400. The Instagram stories would just be awkward on it.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah. There's 400. There's 400, and I bet you that they need 600.
Does TikTok have an iPad interface? No.
Twitter barely has one.
Twitter barely has one. Yeah. So maybe. Yeah. There's something about, maybe you're right, it's React. I mean, I would be embarrassed to admit that. If that were the case, I wouldn't say it.
No, they said that there's very few, mostly just preferences screens now. But I think it was just an awkward reply. Like if he had just said something like, we're really focused on the iPhone app experience and we're building out feature sets there.
It was no
win. It would have
win.
been like 2 seconds.
It was no win because there's no way he can say the truth, whatever the truth is.
Part of it is that you had the human resources and the budget and the time to create a competitor to a smart assistant box, a video device. So it's like that. So that's not a damning sort of thing to accuse them of. It's just that it really does say that if companies that want to do things find ways to make that thing happen. Apple wanted to get into the $12,000 gold super premium watch market. They moved heaven and earth to make that happen. So that's why it's obviously disingenuous when they say that, oh gosh, if only we had the manpower. That's why I just think it would cost them nothing to say that we don't find the iPad to be a priority for us.
Well, I think that's what he's saying. I mean, if it was a priority, you're right. It's just that it's not a priority, and he's got a lot of other fires. There's a bunch of other fires, and this one doesn't matter to us. It's not.
Yeah, he's just saying it more diplomatically.
This would take time away from our stealing candy from infants and bones from doggies.
But we shouldn't underestimate it. It's not just hiring a programmer to manage it.
No, of course.
It's a team. It's a process. You're talking about them committing $10 to $20 million a year to something to support it minimum. Like an iPad support would cost them at least $10 to $20 million a year.
They might have to switch to single ply bathroom paper in the.
But the thing is that someone's making a decision internally that says, is it worth $20 million? And everyone's saying, no, not worth it. We're not going to get anything more.
I also think it is so valuable for them to have apps on your phone.
Oh yeah.
That's why Facebook has separate apps for WhatsApp and for Instagram and for Facebook. In fact, for a long time, Facebook had many Facebook apps. And that's so valuable for them that they don't want to do anything that might reduce the number of people who have it on their phone.
Yeah.
Right. That's the most valuable place for it to be.
And the question is if you have an iPad, they know that you have a phone, and the phone is more valuable to them. Why would they give it to you on your iPad?
Right.
Why would they bother?
Exactly.
Because if you have an iPad, you have an iPhone.
Every minute you're using on the iPad, you're not using it on the iPhone.
Well, and again, there's no upside. You're just going to go, oh. Like they just know that the average user will go, oh, I really wish this was on an iPad. I'm just now going to use my phone. Like they're not going to stop using Instagram because it's not on an iPad.
Right.
At least they support the web now, somewhat.
A little bit.
I mean, I now can look at Instagram photos. I don't use Instagram.
My favorite thing now is you see an Instagram link and you tap on it and it opens the web page because the quick links are often broken in betas. And then you press another button and it says, do you want to open this in Instagram? And you press yes. It takes you to the App Store to download Instagram, which you already have installed. And there's just no way to actually see what you clicked on. Ever.
I just hate it when I'm in a coffee shop and I'm like commenting on something on Instagram. And of course, as soon as I hit post, I think, oh, that's right. You didn't end that sentence when you edited it. And now I have to actually go out and get my phone because that kind of edit can't be done, or deleting an etiquette, whatever it is, can't be done on the iPad through the web app. I have to do it on the phone app. So, oh well.
I have to admit, I'm starting to rethink my extreme position on Facebook and Instagram. I kind of miss Instagram a little bit.
That's the weak link, Leo. I can't get it. I nuked Facebook and I can't quit Instagram. It's how they keep you.
Yeah. And part of it is like Lisa will say, oh, well, yeah, they had a baby. I said, who? What? They? When? How did you know that? Oh, it's on Instagram.
Right.
And I don't know all this stuff. Not that I really care. If you had a baby, I'm sorry. I don't really care.
For Leo means he's sorry that he
baby.
didn't see it, not that you had a baby.
I'm sorry you had a baby, and I'm sorry.
Unless your name is Yoda.
Let's just hope that the baby takes after the mother, let's just say.
And I'm not talking about Florence Ion, who did have a baby, and I knew about it. I'm very happy for Flo. Yeah, baby Mona. It's so sweet. Yeah. No, I wasn't talking about her.
Yes. Do you know that if we because of my New York City trip, we were going to record roughly when she was going to go into labor, but I decided to do something sensible and stay home an extra day to record on regular time. We could have had one of those sitcom experiences where she goes into labor on Skype and I have to be her labor coach via Skype.
Yeah, or delivered it in the cab.
Think of the click-throughs.
Oh man,
I was saying we would have definitely been invited to be on Ellen if that had happened. Definitely.
Apple. I don't use Apple Music that much. I'm a subscriber, but apparently people really like the 2019 replay list.
Yeah.
Do you use that? The 2020 list is out now. What is it?
It's like Spotify's version of the end of the year. It just kind of like aggregates together the data of all this stuff that you've listened to. I didn't think it was that exciting. I think, honestly, Spotify does it a lot better. There's so much sharing, like social interaction that goes on with the way Spotify does it. There's so much more data understanding of it. I think it's in beta. It says, Apple says it's in beta. So I think they have a lot to do to grow. Maybe letting us know right now that your 2020s playlists are already populating. Maybe that's a way to get us more excited about it, so that at the end of the year it actually is something interesting that we want to share with people. But it definitely, I was really excited about it when it first came out last year. And then I went and looked at it and was like, here's the song that I listen to the most. Here's the album I listen to the most. And that's it. That's good. There we go.
It's in the For You tab. It's in the...
it's on the web. I don't think you can use it. Yeah, I don't think you can use it on your phone yet, or on your tablet yet. You can only use it on the web.
Okay.
I mean,
which
like within the
super
app.
weird for Apple.
Yeah. Well, it's in beta, so it's got a ways to go. But the only way they can, decide how to move forward with it is for everybody to try it out and test it, I think. So that's why
the 2020 version won't be ready till the end of the year, but they just want you to know we're watching what you're doing. So.
I think it's already aggregating. I think you can already see what is the songs you've listened to the most in the first month of the year, so that it'll constantly be updating. So when at the end of February, you'll have a little bit more data that aggregates what you listen to in January and February and separates out what you listen to in January versus February. So I believe that's their goal, is to like kind of every month give you an update on like all the stuff that you had been listening to recently, which makes me think that at the end of 2020 they'll have a better summary or display of all of your data to help it kind of make it a little more interesting and fun, which is kind of what Spotify I think does really well, is they give you this data in a really fun way. It makes you want to share it with everybody on your social medias, which is why it got to be so big.
We're going to do our picks of the week in a second, but I would be remiss if I did not mention that redesigning Sonic the Hedgehog at a cost of millions. Paid up tens
You mean
of
fixing,
millions.
sir? You mean fixing Sonic the Hedgehog, sir?
Fixing.
It's not minor.
Paid off.
Customer feedback. It's valuable. Listen to it.
What was wrong with Sonic? Was it? I remember Pikachu was too fuzzy.
They gave him teeth. They made him tall. I mean, it was just, there was a pitch meeting.
His legs
it was a
were
digital
really...
guy
It was a disaster.
Yeah.
It was
like a guy in a suit. Yeah.
It was cats. It was cats bad.
They're
I can't believe James Corden ruined this
They
too.
uncatted it.
But I love James Corden on the Oscars in his cat suit. That was hysterical.
You gotta own it.
You gotta own
At
it.
some point, you just gotta own it.
Go all the way, baby. So $70 million opening weekend. So I guess,
It might pay us off.
It might pay off. By the way, this is some sort of record. I don't know, maybe game record.
Highest video game.
Highest video game
ever.
title ever. Beating Detective Pikachu.
I can't believe
God,
he
it's
beat
creeping me out.
Pikachu.
That's the original?
If
That's
you're making
horrible.
a Sonic movie, just make Sonic. That's all you have to. You have one job, literally one job. Make Sonic. We know what it looks like.
It's like they put somebody's dentures inside of a stuffed, taxidermied Sonic. Ew.
He also had shorter, more human-looking legs instead of like the tall, skinny legs that he has, and so that was really off-putting too, because it kind of looked like a guy without any.
Was it a
pants
guy
on.
in a suit? Was it? I mean, it does. It looks like a
I
guy
don't
in a suit.
think it actually was. It just kind of looked like it. Yeah.
Oh, thank God they did.
It wasn't. Yeah, it's amazing when we now have these digital tools.
John, you're giving me give me the jeepers. It's going back and forth. For those not watching video, they're shifting back and forth between the real Sonic and the scary Sonic. How hard is that to do, Alex? They went back through the whole movie, right? They replaced it.
It's expensive.
They have to redo all the CGI.
It cost all the money. Yeah.
I wouldn't be that surprised if they had this model originally, but then everyone else in the production wanted to go for a more realistic design.
No.
And then once they saw the reaction to this design right here, they just kind of went back and worked with the older models they had beforehand.
Yeah,
too.
but it's like
That looks like the Fantastic Mr. Fox. It looks like kind of an animatronic.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to, remap all the,
they had to redo it. They'd take it all out. Well, take the original
plates. Because they had actually put out the ad. They put out the trailer for it. So they were.
It would be it's especially when it's your hero character. It's not like it was in like 20 scenes in the middle.
Yeah, it's the whole. It's in every scene.
It's in every scene or most of the scenes, and so.
But like the Pokemon movie, they used the Pokemon models. Like they did texture them. They made them look more realistic. But there was the actual it looked like the Pokemon.
This isn't Sonic. This is some other creepy. Yeah. This is like the Slender Man version. I mean, this is like something.
It's not easy.
Stop it!
I would love. I think one of the most interesting stories about design is when they had to finally create like a 3D version of Mickey Mouse, and now they have to answer all kinds of questions that were never even on the table, such as, okay,
what
the pink part of his muzzle. The pink part of his muzzle, is it skin or is there fur on it? Right. And now, how do we animate his ears in 3 dimensions, even though even in 2 dimensions it's always been sort of they're always parallel to the plane of the camera. So we're laughing, we shouldn't say that it's a trivial thing, but there's so many simple, well, not super well. Okay, see, he's a movie star. I can't compete with that.
You got to open your mouth.
I'm just a dumb. I don't want to.
If Sonic had massive sideburns, I would have thought it was your fault.
Can I just say that while I was in New York last week on my way back from the opera, I stopped at a convenience store in Brooklyn, and a 20-year-old a youth culture person in Brooklyn approvingly complimented my outfit and said that it was, quote, swaggy as, and then an expletive. So I am swaggy, middle-aged man. Swaggy. The shoes, and he didn't try to sell me anything, nor was he trying to distract me while a partner of his was going through my backpack.
Was this the first example of a movie being saved by memes? Because it was vicious memes that really convinced Paramount to redo
Snakes
this.
on a Plane, maybe?
Maybe Snakes on a Plane. I don't know. Oh my God! Oh my! Oh.
Yeah.
I'm just looking at this is the Forbes article where they showed some of the memes that obviously terrified the movie company enough to fix it.
Oh yeah, look, there's look at the old version.
Yeah. Oh yeah, it's like a guy in tights.
Yeah.
But the wrong kind.
I remember
we should be.
It's like a Sonic onesie.
We shouldn't be punishing these. They paid their penance by remaking this movie. We shouldn't be like re-airing their old mistakes. We should be.
Yeah, they're like, why can't we just let this
celebrating? Go? Yeah, celebrating it.
Some of the memes are really funny.
Yeah.
All right, let's save by the meme. Let's do the picks of the week, shall we? Starting with you, Mr. Rene Ritchie.
All right, so I ordered this Cairo throw. It comes in this beautiful bag.
Oh, you got it.
And the throw itself is quite amazing.
Is that a Canadian word for blanket?
No.
Oh, this is from Susan. This is from Susan Kerr.
This is from Susan Kerr.
She did the original icons for the Macintosh.
Yes, exactly that. It is a gorgeous, gorgeous throwback to her classic era of design.
I want this.
The fonts that shipped with the original Mac, the iconography, and it's all its pixel perfection. I saw that she mentioned it on.
Now you had the good sense to get it in black and white, I think, not green and pink.
Yeah.
Or gray.
But I saw her
and yellow.
mention it, and then I think I saw Serenity leap on it immediately, and I'm like, not so fast, Saturn. I'm going to get one too.
Oh, I'm ordering it right now.
I ended up ordering it, and it arrived super fast, and I've just been enjoying it. It's gorgeous. It feels magnificent, and what a retro nostalgic dopamine hit it gives me every time I see it.
Oh, I'm getting it so I can wear it during the show. That is awesome.
Yes.
Show us again what it looks like.
Yeah, so this is the blanket itself, and this is the little bag that it comes in, which is just a dark blue version.
So cool.
Oh, and there's one thing I wanted to mention to anybody who might be in Cupertino now. They have a special edition Hermes band available, as far as I know, only at Apple Park, and I don't know how many they have. So if you're in the area and you want to get one,
ooh, that's pretty.
It's
a blue.
Hurry on over.
It's a blue. It's got
deep,
a stud.
Deep blue.
Kind of a.
I love the pyramid stud on that. It appeals to the punk in me.
What, the pyramid?
They might be gone already, but there might still be some in stock.
Is that what you call those studs? Pyramid studs?
Pyramid studs, yeah. People put them all over their jackets. Renee's so punk rock, he's got it on his Apple Watch.
Yeah, it's on his Apple Watch. So how did you get it? They sent it to you, or you had to send somebody
I had
to
a friend. I heard about them, and a friend of mine very kindly decided to. Well, I sent them money, and they bought it on my.
I might have to go down to Cupertino. That's very attractive. It looks good.
Yeah. The original one was black. They had one that was in black a couple of years ago, and they discontinued it, and now they have just a very small amount of blue. I don't know if they were testing it and decided to sell what they had or whatever happened, but they had them in stock.
Yeah, I don't know how punk navy blue is.
Yeah, black definitely is more of a punk color. Black. Yeah.
And I just ordered the Cairo blanket. That is awesome.
It is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Wow. And I hope Susan gets a big chunk of money from it because
I believe
she's the greatest. Yeah.
Yes.
They've got a great picture of her on the.
Yep. I was so glad to click on that link and discover that no, this was not someone doing a knockoff.
Right.
This is the creator getting acknowledgement for what they do, which is I can't say that I'm pure as the driven snow. Whenever I see like a really cool like third party unlicensed T-shirt design of a character, of like, oh, I know that I know that Universal Syndicate is being ripped off, but I have to have it. This is one where. But it's Susan Kerr. Come on,
yeah.
I'm not gonna buy a moof. I'm not gonna buy a moof hat unless somehow she gets some money off.
There's
of it.
an even nicer little geekier thing. This was made on a Jacquard loom, the very early computer-controlled looms, and she designed it for a Jacquard loom. So it was invented in 1801, and they were controlled by punch cards. So it's even got a geekier provenance. That's fantastic.
It's full geek.
Areaware.com, AREAWARE.com. It's the Cairo
gotten expensive.
$135. I bought it immediately. And I got the black and white. That'd be silly to get any other color.
I would pay a lot more for Susan's work. I won't tell them how much more because I don't want to see that pricing change too much.
No, Susan's the greatest. That's so. Yeah. And the picture of her in 1984 sitting in front of her Mac, designing the icons. That's lounging. I should say. It's not sitting.
Such a good tip. I've had an expensive month. Otherwise, I would have just bought it right now. But it's on my list for next month.
Yeah.
Retcon5 says, yeah, Navy Blue Flag failed as a name for a punk band.
Didn't even have a shot.
That's my Black Flag cover band, Navy Blue Band. Miss Lori Gill, your pick of the week.
Yeah, so you are looking at me right now through Logitech's new Stream Cam. They sent it to me to test it out.
It looks
and
good.
I really like it. It's real simple. It's designed for people who are just getting started in the streaming, YouTube streaming and internet streaming stuff. It's simple, easy to use. It has just a little bit more than the basics. It's not too complicated. It comes with their software called Capture, which is actually what really makes this a good product is
and it's
the
Mac
Capture
software
technology.
That was for a long time a problem with Logitech. It is now available on Mac. Yeah, good.
Yeah,
good.
Yeah, they did find, and they're calling it beta because there's one feature that they're still working on that is already available on PC, but not quite. It's not quite perfect yet on Mac. So it has everything, but one of the features is kind of still kind of glitchy, so they're calling it beta. But so this camera streams 1080p at 60 frames per second. So it's got a pretty decent quality. It has USB-C. It is a USB-C device, which is funny because right now I'm using it on my 2015 iMac that does not have a USB-C port. So I had to put it into a hub, which is really funny. But it also has vertical and horizontal option. You can just pull it out and clip it to another. It has this typical mount, but it comes with a tripod mount tripod thread mount. So it has a bunch of different options to it. It actually has its own microphone in it. So if you don't even have a microphone yet, you can literally just plug in and start streaming. And so it's really great for brand new people who are just starting out on trying to stream stuff and they don't want to spend a bunch of money and they don't even necessarily know how to make that work. So $170, it's not the top of the line streaming service. It doesn't do 4K, but it does 1080p at 60 frames, which is better than most 1080p. Those are usually 30 frames per second. So this does 60 frames per second, kind of jumps it up a little. So if you are about to start blogging, video blogging, if you were about to start streaming on YouTube and you're wondering what camera to get, this should be your first camera. This is a good starter camera for sure.
And this looks great. And the 60 frames is important if you're streaming for games, because a lot of your games are going to be, you're going to be streaming your games at 60p. And so if you go back to 30p every time you come back to your camera, it's a bummer. So the 60p is important for the cameras.
Yeah, and the capture technology that comes with it, you actually can use the capture technology with Logitech's entire webcam line, but one great thing about it is that it allows you to do stuff like have picture-in-picture, so that it can stream from your desktop and the video of you in the bottom corner. It's all built into the capture technology, which is really good for beginners. It's certainly nowhere near good for people who have figured it out and are doing more. But if you're just getting started, that capture technology, the software that comes with the webcam is really good.
What does it say about?
As soon as you came on, everybody on the panel was like, "Oh my God, what did you do that was different? Your camera looks great."
Looked good. Yeah.
Great.
What is?
You always look good, but
what does it say about our culture, though, that you can turn it sideways and shoot vertical?
It's
that it's funny. At first, I thought, "Oh no, vertical video," but I realized a lot of
Facebook,
influencers are only on things like Instagram and Facebook and Twitter, and that's the long form. There's no such thing as don't do vertical video anymore. That's definitely changed completely. So
I had a lot of clients that would come and they go, "We really want to do 9x16," and I'd be like, "Do you really? It's really not great." And admittedly, sometimes the use cases are not good. If you have like 2 or 3 people sitting there together, it's not a great thing. But there's something about
there was a reason they were asking for it, though. I mean, they wanted to do it for some reason.
Well, didn't you think during the Samsung announcement when they were doing the Netflix tie-in and they all walked in with their Galaxy S20s that they were going to be low-key announcing Netflix portrait or Netflix vertical video?
And, what I think is going to happen is Quibi is already talking about it, and I think that we're going to see more people talking about the idea of building, shooting something that you can watch in 9x16 or 16:9. So if you just turn your camera, whichever direction you turn it, it's going to give you an experience in that format. But I think that the 9x16, there is something about a person talking to you that's more personal, because you don't have to worry about the background. You notice this a lot on some of the Instagram stuff, TikTok. I don't have to worry about the background because I'm blocking all of that, and I don't have to think about what to do with that.
It's digital native.
Yeah, and when you're watching it, especially if you're watching a lot of short form, that's when I really find it. So if I'm watching a bunch of 1-minute things or 30-second things, and I'm going to the next thing or 3 minutes, I don't want to keep turning my phone around. Yeah. And so you just get, I know that if I'm on TikTok and I see a 9x16 or 16:9,
it's weird.
I don't even watch. It doesn't even get to the first second. I just go, no, because now I'm gonna have to turn my phone. It's not gonna look good, and I'm not interested. So for me to say that is a thing.
I know.
For me to say that I won't watch 16:9.
But Lori, please don't do portrait when you call.
I could literally switch right now.
Switch right now.
Do it. Let's see what happens.
Let's see what it looks like.
It's really easy to do.
We need those Samsung TVs. We need those Samsung TVs.
No, I bet you.
So this is what happens. I turn sideways.
Nothing.
Hi there.
That's it.
That's probably Skype, right? Right, doing that.
Yeah, that might be the
Skype. probably doesn't know what the hell to do.
You might have to jump out and jump back in too.
Yeah.
But you saw how easy that was, and now
I do that on
back
FaceTime.
set up. Right, so.
When I FaceTime my mom, FaceTime by default is in portrait, and I'll switch it. She said, "What did you just do? Don't do that."
Right.
She doesn't want to see me widescreen
because she's holding her phone.
People watch YouTube
that means
on
she's going to have to turn her phone.
In tiny windows on phones, and they get complaints. It's like, why is the aspect ratio so wide? I'm watching this on a phone. Yeah. I'm like, turn the phone. They're like, I don't want to.
No.
Right.
I have it set so it won't flip. Yeah. Alex Lindsay, pick of the week.
So if you want to edit it, a lot of times you're not in front of your computer, and you want a little bit more editing than iMovie will provide, or many of the other ones. One of the things that I've been starting to experiment with a lot, and I'm pretty happy with for a mobile editing, is LumaFusion.
Oh, good. I've had that for a while.
It's really cool. It's really cool. I'm kind of amazed at how much they put into this app. So LumaFusion is basically, it feels probably more like Final Cut than anything else as far as how to edit. So it's got a lot more tools. and a lot more. You can start really building up layers of audio and video. There are effects. There's, and you can. It's going to give you a lot more than you're going to get out of iMovie. It costs a little bit of money. It's $30, but I mean $30 for a full editing.
You wouldn't want to use
iPad.
that on the iPhone, though, would you?
I haven't tried to use it on the iPhone.
That seems a little small.
I've used it on my iPad, but I don't like. I try not to take my laptop out of my office very often anymore, and so what I found is that I needed something that was going to get me between when I'm home and using Final Cut and when I'm on the road and I want to be able to cut something to throw up. And again, it already has unlike Final Cut, it has a 9:16 drop down if you want to cut that. And it's got just a ton of tools, and it's really they've done a great job at making it very intuitive. And they've got some great training. Joseph Lanaschke, who's a friend of mine, did incredible training on it. So there's tons of YouTube videos on how to get started that you can just get for free, and so it's a great app to get off the. If you're looking for something that's relatively inexpensive, you can throw it on your iPad. You can actually do real work on it. This is a great application. I would highly recommend it. And I'm going to be using it a lot more on the road.
Keep stalling him.
Yep. Anyway, so but there's a
no, it's all right. You can stop stalling.
It grabs onto your immediately jumps into iPhoto, so it's totally tied in and tied together. So it's really easy to grab onto any of the assets that you've already that you're building, and it feels like a very native. I mean, it feels like
there's
Apple
so many video editing programs now.
There are.
I have that. I have MuseMage. I have Premiere Rush. I have Video Leap, Clips. But you really, I did buy LumaFusion. I think I made an app cap a couple of months ago.
I'll admit that what I found with a lot of the other ones, and I'm still playing with all of them, trying to figure out what's good for, because especially when you're building social media videos, there are ones that are driven more towards those things.
Is this what you used for the Valentine's one?
I actually use Final Cut, but I recut it in this.
So you have the 9:16.
Yeah. Well, I did it to see how hard would it be to do the same thing, and there was a couple. So I have to admit that I was using Red Giant's.
As a
looks
filter.
As a filter, and I use looks, and I use the earthquake
magic bullety.
So there's a magic bullet applied to it, and then there's the earthquake plugin.
That was subtle at the end. I like that. I thought, what did you do at the end when he eats the flower?
A little plugin.
It shakes. Yeah.
So what I did at the very end there is I just cut that clip. And so right when he bites it, I applied an earthquake filter to it.
Oh, that's awesome.
And so
that actually added a nice edge subtly.
Yeah. And it's it is.
You're the Alfonso Cuarón of TikTok.
Well, what I love about it is that we thought of it. Literally, we talked about it at breakfast.
You could do it right away.
We went out and shot it in 10 minutes, and I had it posted half an hour later.
Would have been faster if you didn't do the animatics in between, but still pretty good.
There's a storyboard session. We had to talk to the producer in LA. It was a
conference call.
Yeah. It was a bunch of can we move clip 4 16 frames ahead? Because that's really what we need.
Do we have a
tail? Do we have a tail for that?
Isn't it nice not to have to do that?
And I love the fact that whatever we do on TikTok is better than most of what is there, and so we have a lot of fun with just I can just throw something up and it doesn't, if it's not like this one, there's a whole bunch of things I didn't like about it, but I was like, it's done.
I love it.
I'm going to work. So
don't be a perfectionist.
Yeah, exactly.
TikTok, the McDubbies, TheMcDubbys, unaccountably, still only 252 followers, even though we've plugged it every show for the last month.
TikTok doesn't really approve of kids having their own TikTok, and even though this is my TikTok channel, my kids are on it. And so they tend to not.
They're not promoting it.
You don't get any, you just go right into a black hole.
Zero
so unless people follow it directly, it doesn't. Which is fine. We're having a great time.
Did he swallow or did he spit?
He spit.
Yeah, I thought so, because you don't want to really eat that.
It was a rose. He was like, I was like, do you want to do it again? He's like, no, I do not want to do that again. He only did it once. This was one take. I'm really glad I got the camera angle right, because he was.
Yeah, he wasn't going to do that.
He was not going to do that the second.
There are only a dozen to start with, so.
Yeah.
Mr. Andy Ihnatko, pick of the week, sir.
Mine is the most tech pick of the week at all. It is NASA's lunar lander.
Ooh.
The Apollo lunar lander
Can I buy that yet, or is it on?
Yes, you can for $100, but some assembly is required. It's the Lego lunar lander.
Oh, it's Lego.
It was released recently, just a few months ago, and it is incredible because it's not just you built something that is shaped like the lunar lander. It's like by the time you put,
nice.
I've just ordered it. I just ordered it today. My thanks to everybody on Twitter who occasionally during like Black Friday, if I tweeted out a link to a deal like on a DVD or on a book or on something that I thought was really, really cool, I get one big windfall of Amazon credits a year and every year I spend them exclusively on things that I'm gonna have fun with, and this was one of the things I bought with this. My windfall came today, and so. Not only is it the lander like on the lunar surface with like little Lego footprints leading up to the flag. Not only do you get Buzz and Neil, but you might have expected, if this is a good model, that you can detach the orbiter from the lander part. Okay, but you can also like open up a shelf on the side of the lander to reveal the cameras that were used to take the video of the planting the flag and the first footsteps. On the orbiter, you can actually like take off the sides of it to look inside to see the crew module, like, and see how it was configured inside. It's like 1,000 pieces, so you're gonna have a lot of fun putting it together. But you're also gonna like, so that's where the RCS system is. Oh, okay, so I didn't know where that was in relationship to that pad. So it's gonna arrive. Fortunately, good timing. It's not gonna arrive till tomorrow. So I will probably be finished building it by the time by next week's show. If it had arrived on Sunday or Monday, I might be making it. I might be just basically doing the show like side saddle while I'm still playing with my lunar lander.
Well, we expect to see it next week. That is pretty cool.
I will. You can also by the way, you can also get a lighting kit for it. There are like a couple of different people who've made third-party lighting kits you can install inside it so it's illuminated. Already as I'm ordering it, I'm thinking, and when I finish it, I want to like get a museum-style vitrine to like put a glass case to put on it. Anyway. I'm really happy. Thank you. It's only $100. It's like the amount of happiness that I'm experiencing just knowing that it's arriving tomorrow is worth at least 40 of those dollars.
And as Burke pointed out, for those of you who are doubters, proof positive we did land on the moon.
Exactly. We do it. Again, you joke, but in seriousness, part of this is so complete. You also get the laser reflector that they left on the moon, so that NASA could fire a laser from the Earth to calculate the distance between the Earth and the moon. This was not like hey, I've got a box of Lego, let's build it. It's like, no, let's build something as close to a model as possible. So
I love it. They have the Apollo landing computer right there. This is so cool.
I wouldn't even put it past them that there is like a square brick and a round brick representing the differences between the air scrubber filters in the lander section versus the what they had in the other part in the orbiter.
If you've always wondered what's behind the screen Andy's sitting in front of, there it is. There's his beautiful studio. And the lunar lander.
I just sit there and quietly cry while I wait for another chance to be on TWiT.
Andrew, thank you so much. When are you going to be on WGBH?
Friday at looks like 1 p.m. and we'll be at the Boston Public Library. So the studio is at WGBH in the Johnson building of the Boston Public Library. Come on in, get yourself a cookie and a cup of coffee, and again, watch me gesture wildly with my hands as I explain concepts, knowing full well that this is radio and no one can see me.
Awesome. imore.com/vectors, where you're going to find Mr. Rene Ritchie. God, I don't know how you find time to do anything but make vector shows. You make so many, and they're so beautiful, and they're so good.
Oh, thank you so much.
Why the iPhone 12 needs smart zoom.
Zoom is another thing that I don't want to have to take my camera out for. I want my phones to do all the zoom.
You're actually comparing it to the zoom on the S20.
I think in a perfect world, Apple, because, Google is all in on Super Res Zoom, which is software. They have really commodity cameras on that thing. And Samsung doesn't do a lot of very good machine learning, but they like Huawei, have these monster periscope lenses, cameras on their phones. I would like a much more capable zoom, and Apple's smart, because they're all repurposing smart HDR, their HDR pipelines to do it. That would just be a perfect blend of both. And then I could leave another lens at home when I go out.
And yesterday you addressed the question, where is the iPhone Flip, for those who are listening today. Thank you.
And tomorrow, no spoilers, but I should have Neil Seibart on to talk about everything that's happening with Apple's restated earnings.
Yeah,
cool.
He's fantastic. The numbers guy. He's great. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Alex Lindsay has a new gig at 090.com if you need streaming, or .media, I'm sorry, 090.media. If you need streaming support, if you're about ready to do the State of the Union online, this is the guy to go to, 090.media. You can also follow him on Twitter, AlexLindsa.
I'm not nearly as serious on Twitter.
No, he's a lot more fun. He's not that serious here either. Lori Gill, thank you as always. She always dresses in black except when she's wearing pink. She's managing editor of iMore, but no navy at all. And on
that's not punk enough.
Not going to happen. At Appaholic on the Twitter, APPAHOLIK. Anything you want to mention? You got a show coming up or anything you want to plug?
Not that I want to plug. We have a couple shows coming up, but whatever.
Whatever. She's like me. She doesn't like promoting. No promotion. Who needs to promote? If you're good, who needs to promote?
If you're good, they'll come to you.
They will come to you. Thank you, everybody, for coming to us today. We appreciate it. We do MacBreak Weekly, 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern, 1800 UTC. That would be, I'm sorry, 1900. I'm always getting that wrong. 1900 UTC every Tuesday at the out of the TWiT studios, which means you can watch us stream it live at twit.tv/live or listen live. You can also join us live if you want. We have an open studio. Just email tickets@twit.tv so we know to expect you. If you're not around during air time, record time, I guess I should call it, you can get the on-demand version at the website, twit.tv/mbw. You can also subscribe, if you would. Best way to get it: Stitcher, Slacker, Pocket Cast, Overcast, Podcast Republic, Apple Podcasts, Google, the podcast platform of your choice. Even Spotify. Just subscribe, and that way you'll get it the minute it's available every Tuesday afternoon. Thanks for being here, everybody. Now it's time to get back to work, because Steve Gibson's coming up next. No, break time is over.